Today, we are going to be talking about something that I'm very passionate about, rehab. The reason why I'm very passionate about rehab is because, yes, it's cool to be able to squat a little bit more weight or hit new PRs in the gym. But it's also really cool to see somebody who has written off their ability to do something be able to do that again, whether it is playing with your grandkids or working out, just like you used to do 20 years ago. Now, when it comes to rehab, as I've learned from Barbell Rehab, and our good buddy over there, Dr. Michael Nash, there's 5 components that you can kind of compose every injury into. It's doing too much, too soon, too fast after not doing enough for a long enough period of time. In that bracket, we are able to summarize most injuries, and I'm going to show you a plan for how to give yourself guidelines for restructuring your training program, what your lifestyle looks like, to be able to get back to doing the things that you love. So we know that when an injury happens, we're doing too much of something. So on that scale of too much, we are going to have that point of incidence where we end up crossing our line of tolerance, and that is where the injury occurs. Now, what happens most of the time when people try to rehab is we take a little bit of a break and then we start coming back, and within a couple weeks start doing activity at the same level of intensity that we used to. Again, wasn't that long ago, sure, had a little sprain or an injury or something happened. But the unfortunate part is when we get back to doing activities at that same level that we used to, we don't necessarily take into account that our line of tolerance for the workload that we can actually handle has dropped a little bit. So we end up getting injured again. And then it becomes this whole vicious cycle of up and downs over the next few years where your tolerance for what your body can handle continues to drop with it. So in that case, what we actually want to try and do here is going to be something a little bit different. We want to make sure that we're not doing too much, too fast, too soon after not doing enough for a long enough period of time. So when that initial injury does occur and we cross that line and the injury happens, what we're first going to do is acknowledge, hey, I had an injury. We're going to slow it down a little bit. So yes, we're going to have a little bit of time to rest and recover depending on the injury and the severity of it. Might last a little bit longer for some, shorter for others. But what we want to start doing is maintaining somewhere around 75 to 50% of the level of activity that we were doing before. Again, it could have been weeks of being overworked that eventually led to that injury that occurred. So we're going to make sure that we take a little bit of time, maintain ourselves before we start getting back up to that level of intensity. So we're going to maintain for a little bit, and then we're slowly going to start to climb. Because again, like we discussed before, our tolerance for our workload has dropped a little bit. Now, the nice part is, as we start to maintain and as we start to work up closer to what our body can maintain in that top end, our body will continue to recover, and the tolerance for what our body can take will also start to increase as well. So then we're just going to stay right underneath that line and get closer and closer to what our body can handle the longer that time goes on. And that is how we're going to try and take ourselves out of that chronic injury, constantly experiencing those pains, or that one thing that always happens with the shoulder whenever you're bench pressing, right? And it's going to be a small maintenance period after dropping off your activity for a little while. Find something else that you can challenge yourself in, have fun with it, and then slowly start to climb back up. But there won't be much of a reason outside of professional competition to go back to the same level of intensity that you were. Because a year or two down the road, when that injury persists, you're just going to keep wishing, man, I really wish I pulled back a little bit and just took an extra couple weeks to get myself right, so that way my body could properly rehab and that issue just doesn't keep persisting. Anyways, I hope this helps break it down into something a little bit more simple, and I'll be expanding on it later on. Have a great day.